Hi, I'm Craig Wescoe, and I've been a professional content creator for the past 15 years. And over the past year or two, 90% of my skill set has been completely obsoleted by AI. But in today's video, I'm going to show you how I'm using that to my advantage. I've been in the content creation space primarily in writing. As a professional gamer, as one of the top Magic the Gathering players, one of the top writers in the game, I published for 10 years as a top strategy columnist for tcgplayer.com. And I worked for them for 10 years out of their 13 years of existence. And when they sold the company, they sold it to eBay for almost $300 million. Before that, I was a university instructor. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in philosophy, where I taught courses at the university level in critical thinking, symbolic logic. So I'm a very strategic thinker, and that should probably come out. This channel is not going to be a super polished channel. It's just going to be my way of relating a lot of the things I'm learning, because as I said in the intro, I've been a content creator professionally for 15 years, but the entire landscape has drastically changed over the past year or two. And I thought that there's no hope for me as a content creator moving forward because I'm just getting replaced by robots. But what I started to realize once I looked more into what sort of AI tools are now available that weren't available 3 or 4 years ago, I'm now learning how to use those tools to my advantage. And I'm starting to learn that the landscape is now just completely changed. Content creators are not obsolete, but content creators not using AI, that's what's becoming obsolete. So if you want to prevent yourself from becoming obsolete as a content creator, then you, like I've been doing, need to embrace this new AI world that we're venturing into and start learning how to use the tools. There's new tools that are coming out so frequently that it's this huge myriad landscape of tools. Even though all these programs and tools are becoming obsolete so quickly, by the next iteration, the next thing comes out 2, 3, 6 months later. What's really important though is learning the skill set, because a lot of the skills are transferable. So even though there's a new program that comes out that could do the same thing more efficiently, more cheaply, faster, higher quality, great, then you just switch to the new program that allows you to do the same thing just at a faster, more efficient, higher quality rate. But the one thing that all the AI systems seem to be really concentrating on is prompting. The number one skill that you can learn in this new AI world that we're moving into is prompt engineering. Learn how to communicate with the robots to get exactly what you want in the most efficient way possible. So for instance, let's take ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whichever one you're wanting to use. If you just ask a very general question, then you're going to get a very general answer. And a lot of times that's not going to be what you're looking for, but that's not a fault of the AI program. They're just large language model systems that are providing output based on the input. And so your input is your prompt. So if you learn to ask the right questions in exactly the right way by minimizing all the distractive noise that would potentially give you a worse answer than what you're actually looking for, then it does a really good job of giving you something that's super top notch. As a professional content creator and someone with a degree in these professional spaces and has been working in the field that I've been working in, I know how to tell what a good answer is from a bad answer because I'm an expert in the field. So I'll a lot of times ask very specific niche questions just to test the different chatbots. And a lot of times I'll get the wrong answer. And so I'll then revise it and I'll say, what about this specific thing? Or what if you look in this specific area? What does this person have to say about it? Then it'll say, oh, you're right. Actually, this is the right answer. And so if you lead it into the place that you want it to do the research, then it might take 1 or 2 tries to get it, but then it'll get the right answer. So you want to fact check everything that these chatbots are giving you. That's the first thing. But secondly, I'm going to give a lot of religious examples because the content creation space that I've been working in for the past decade or so has been in religious studies, especially concerning the Bible. I don't expect to get a lot of followers on this channel who are interested in that content, but that's actually good because I'm not looking to create competitors in my niche space, but I want you to learn what I'm learning in my space and apply it to your niche in your space. That's what this channel is for. So there's an example. I run a channel about Seventh-day Adventists. They're Christians who observe the Sabbath and various other things. Now, I was talking to some Adventists, and they said, these chatbots, how good are they at understanding the Bible? And I was like, let's test it. And I asked GPT, I said, should Christians observe the Sabbath? And it gave me an answer. It said, there's 3 different opinions on this subject, depending on who you ask. The first opinion says, yes, you should, and here's their biblical evidence and their reasons. Next one says, no, you shouldn't, and here's their reasons and evidence. And the third one says, this combination of the 2, and here's their reasons. And obviously they weren't impressed with that answer, and they're like, see, the robots, they don't understand that we are supposed to keep the Sabbath. The AI is still years away from being useful. And I was like, no, we just didn't give the right prompt. And so I said, okay, instead of asking, should Christians keep the Sabbath, like, it's basically going to just poll the audience, because it's just scraping data on the internet to try to find your answer. So if you're just asking the audience, here's what the audience has to say. But that's not what you're trying to get. You're trying to get a persuasive argument for why Christians should keep the Sabbath, right? That's what's going to impress someone who's already convinced that they should. So I changed the prompt and I said, instead, write me a short sermon on why Christians should keep the Sabbath and use all the best biblical support in support of this argument. And so then it said, sure. And it came up with this compelling, persuasive argument for why Christians should keep the Sabbath, along with all this biblical support for that. And I showed that to them, and they're like, wow, that was amazing. That was one of the best sermons on the Sabbath I've ever heard. I was like, yeah, it's all about prompting, giving the right prompt. And I said, how do you think that this would go if you're trying to give this talk to Adventists? In order to make it even more compelling to them, I added a prompt. I said, now take the above sermon that you just wrote and add the most relevant Ellen G. White quote to each of the sections of the sermon in support of each of those points in the sermon. And it said, sure. Now, Ellen G. White, she's one of the main founders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And so the Adventists tend to put her writings almost on par with the Bible. So whenever you use the Bible and Ellen White, it's boom, they're sold. Ellen White has written thousands of pages of material. She's one of the most prolific writers in American history, and very few Adventists have ever read all of her writings. Chatbot GPT can just scrape through all of her writings, because they're all online, to find these quotes and scrape through all the websites that are quoting her and just take the most relevant quotes and feed them back to me in 15 seconds. So then I said, okay, now insert all those into the sermon. And then I showed it to them, and they were just blown away. They're just like, how did a robot just do that? This has everything. I was like, yeah, if you just ask the robots the right thing, you can get exactly what you're looking for. Long story short, when it comes to just asking for material for your content, be sure to ask the right things. Be very specific. Give commands. Don't say, please, if you don't mind, could you do it? It doesn't matter. Okay, you don't need to be polite with the robots. Just give them clear commands and they'll do what you're saying. And then just think about what your finished product is. What is it that you're trying to put together ultimately? And then you want to just beeline it toward that end point. A couple of other tools that are very useful to me. 6 years ago, I started a YouTube channel and I started making videos and editing them, and it was just super time consuming. I had to meticulously take out every pause, retake, all that jazz. Everyone who's done video editing knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it basically took me all weekend to produce something that ultimately was very low quality. I had to type out all the captions and all that stuff. And I said, this is way too much time consuming of an activity. So I ended up using Facebook Live and doing blog posts and tried to SEO rank with my blog posts when they were doing snippets instead of these AI generated introductions. And I did rank. I was the snippet for the core message of the book of Revelation. Whenever somebody would say, what's the book of Revelation all about? Mine would be the top snippet. And whenever someone would ask, why did God tell Peter, arise, kill and eat in Acts 10? Mine was the #1 snippet on Google search results. But then my traffic just nosedived once they implemented Gemini as their AI generated response. And so now people just look at that instead of going to my blog posts on those articles. But now what I'm doing is I'm using all this AI technology. I use Descript, which just takes out all those retakes, improves the sound quality. I don't know if you can hear the airplanes going through in the background, but I'm near an airport. We'll see how good of a job they do at taking that out. And it inserts everything for me, where it doesn't do a phenomenal job, but it's like that 80-20 rule, where it'll get you 80% of the way there with minimal effort. And that makes it worthwhile. So now I'm going to take you through my journey of a content creator that's now embracing this new AI world that we're entering into and tailoring my content production such that I'm maximizing the use of this AI technology. So another cool thing about AI, I've been really thinking about, so what's on the horizon? Because I don't want to waste all this time setting up Zaps for automating my emails and learning how to do all this stuff when right on the horizon 2 months from now, they're just going to automate the whole thing where I just click a button to connect the app. So I'm being very cognizant of where to put my time. I'm trying to learn all the AI technology, implement it, but then also knowing that this technology is developing so rapidly right now that 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, especially 12 months, a lot of the specific programs I'm using are going to become obsolete, either by newer versions or just competitors coming up with a better product. And so I'm really focusing my efforts on just now learning the language, especially prompt engineering, and just getting familiarized with what's available and what the best things really are, so that then whenever something better comes about, I could just test it and immediately be able to recognize that this is the next thing that can amp up my content production, either in terms of efficiency or in terms of quality or both. What I'm also starting to do is imagining what's the end goal of Google. I've already experienced firsthand my blog posts that I've been writing for the past decade are now mostly obsolete, and all they are is just training grounds for all these robots to basically learn and become experts in the field that I'm an expert in based on all the content that I've produced as an expert in that field. And now they're just pirating it all and feeding it to people at the click of a button, and people are ignoring my content. But now what I'm learning is that what Google's ultimate plan is, in my estimation, is for everything to be automatized. If you think about the progression, we went from Google searching and finding results to then Google searching and getting snippets, and then Google searching to get AI generated responses. And the other thing, Google owns YouTube, and so YouTube, the videos that are consistently ranking better are the ones that are incorporating AI effectively. And the channels that are growing the fastest are the ones that are producing 5 to 10 times as much content as they could before by utilizing all these AI tools that are coming out. And so that's the new landscape, the new name of the game in content creation is embracing this AI technology to produce more content at the same quality as you could before. That instead of taking 3 weeks to research and put together an article and turn it into a video and then edit the video and polish it and then putting it out there, now you can do 5 to 10 times as much content. You can do all that in one day with the assistance of all these AI tools. And so what are they trying to do? They're showing more YouTube videos now in the Google search results as well. Of course, why wouldn't they? But now what I think is on the horizon is on-demand content creation. And we're, I think, pretty close to that. I think that 2 years from now, this will be a real thing, maybe sooner. Because one of the most impressive video production tools right now is InVideo AI. And with InVideo AI, you could just give a prompt. You can give a very vague prompt, just a 1-sentence prompt. Hey, make me a video about Jesus overturning the tables in the temple or something. And if you say flipping the tables, he might be like doing this karate kung fu flipping over a table. So you have to be careful with your language because AI might not understand. But if you just ask, say, tell me this thing, make a video of this thing, it'll do it. And it'll just fill in all the gaps itself. And if you give a more specific prompt, it'll give you a more specific answer. That's how it works. But within 15 minutes, InVideo AI can make an entire video based on a single prompt. And it's a pretty good quality video. And so I'm thinking to myself, what's the next stage? We already have this level of technology to just basically produce whatever video I want. And all it takes is a $35 subscription per month to be able to do this. They also have what's called generative credits, where instead of just looking for B-roll footage with going through stock photos and videos, instead what they're doing is literally just generating short video clips that you can use. So you can get like 15 minutes of generative video per month. If you're only making 5-minute videos, maybe that works. But if you're trying to do hour-long, long-form content, like 15 minutes isn't going to get you very far. It's going to be like $400 per video using this technology. But that's really how any cutting-edge technology works. First, it's really expensive to use, and the people spending the money for it get that competitive edge against everyone who's not using it. But then over time, fairly quickly, especially with technology that's developing this quickly, the cost gets reduced and it becomes more and more available to people until it's just omnipresent everywhere. And what I envision is that instead of YouTube incentivizing creators to make content to fill these keyword niches, which is basically what they're doing now, you just cut out the middleman. And now whenever somebody Google searches for a niche subject, then they'll say, do you want me to generate a short video for you on this topic to answer this question for you? And if the person says yes, now it takes 15 minutes, maybe a couple of years from now, it'll take 30 seconds to generate the video. And then you wouldn't be subscribing like you do on YouTube because you're just on Google and it's a generated video by Google, but you would still be liking or disliking. And instead of commenting, you'd be prompting for a regeneration where they'd ask, did this video answer your question? Essentially a short survey. And they'd be like, yes, it did. It was great. It was everything I wanted. And they're like, okay, great. Now we'll show this to the next person that types in that keyword. And if they say, no, actually, it was good, but it didn't include this piece of information. And they say, oh, good idea. Let's include that information. And so then they basically revise the video, regenerate a portion of the video to include something that answers that question. So they're actually taking the comments of the on-demand video that was created into account to improve the video. And so instead of a new content creator coming up with a better video that answers more of the questions, now it's just the AI robots that work for Google are just doing this automatically. Now, I have to imagine this is probably the end goal that they're going toward with content creation. And if it's not, it probably should be. But I'm thinking about all these things because you have to, in today's world, and I know I'm losing sunlight. This is turning into an audio podcast. But basically, you have to be thinking in this way. What's the next step? Because the landscape is going to be changing so rapidly over the next few years and over the next decade that the things that you're learning now outside of prompt engineering, most of which is going to become obsolete in the next couple of years. And you're going to have to learn whole new skills for whatever the new programs are. But I'm telling you, everything is being concentrated in prompt engineering. So learn how to communicate with the robots in the most efficient way possible. Learn what their shortcomings are. Learn how to fact check them. Learn how to have the robots communicate with each other. So for instance, I'll ask ChatGPT, again, going back to my example before, to write me this sermon about why Christians should keep the Sabbath. I can go through and fact check by hand, making sure all those Ellen White quotes are actually legitimate. Or I could just say, that was ChatGPT. Let me ask Gemini to verify that all that information in this sermon is accurate. And so then you can have the Gemini robot check the work of the chatbot GPT robot that followed your prompts to produce the thing that you wanted them to produce. So you can actually have the robots sort of work in tandem that way as well. And I'm sure that you could probably set up a Zapier workflow to actually just automate this process of having the robots check each other's work. And that's probably what they're doing on the way to general intelligence. Because right now we have artificial intelligence, which is very narrow, but I think the goal, which will probably be achieved sometime soon, however we define it, as like the artificial general intelligence, which is, I think, having the robots self-learn and self-correct and things like that. So that's definitely on the horizon, but it's not here yet, so we have to manually do it. But anyway, I just want to share some of my optimism. I know a lot of content creators are thinking their jobs are obsolete, and you're right, they are. And so you have to adapt, otherwise you're just going to get outcompeted very quickly. And the way to adapt right now in the content creation world is to embrace AI and be able to produce 5 to 10 times as much content at the same quality that you're accustomed to. And don't think that you're competing against the robots. Think of it as you're competing against the people who are not embracing AI versus those who are. So embrace the AI, learn how to communicate with the robots, get the robots to work for you, and then you have a whole team around you to compete against all your competitors. And so learning how to assemble a team of robots to work for you is going to give you a huge competitive advantage, really no matter what space you're in. Even if you're not a content creator, if you're in any kind of business, anything that involves a computer, AI robots are allowing you to do what you could do with those computers way more efficiently. Anyway, I just wanted to jump on here and make this an intro video. This is going to be just chronicling my journey. And this one is, again, not going to be very polished. It's not going to have a bunch of bells and whistles. It's really going to be a lot of this raw footage where I'm just communicating things that I've learned along the way and sharing the process. So you're going to hear a lot of things that didn't work and a lot of things that did work. And hopefully you'll learn some things and it'll inspire you to embrace this new world that we're entering into.